Hi, today I'm here with Dr. Louis Profeta, an emergency room physician and a prolific, talented writer. You should all check out some of his work. He's very active on LinkedIn. I can't remember, what's your title on LinkedIn?
Well, one of LinkedIn's top voices in healthcare.
There you go. So check him out, Dr. Louis Profeta. So I want to start today. We're going to talk about your work in the emergency room and in the healthcare system, but you also have written about being a dad, and you wrote one particular article about waking your kids up in the middle of the night for pizza. So just tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it's funny. We were out on the back porch. We were joking about a pizza review that Dave Portnoy gave on Barstool Sports about how bad DiGiorno's pizza was, and we were all arguing about how great DiGiorno's were. And the kids brought it up. The only reason we like DiGiorno's pizza is because Dad used to wake us up in the middle of the night for DiGiorno's. And so what? Being an emergency physician, especially when my kids were young, you had to realize that I would miss a lot of stuff. I sort of envied my wife because she got to be around the kids during the day when they're awake, and I'd be at school, I'd be at work, or I'd be sleeping during the day because I was working nights. And there were days where I just really needed to see my kids, and I'd come home late at night, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning from the hospital, and I hadn't seen my kids all day, or maybe even for 24 hours. And I'd pick up a frozen pizza from the gas station on the way home and throw it in the oven and then go and wake them up. And these kids, the kids were like, 6, 7, 8 years old, 10 years old. I'd wake them up at 2, 3 in the morning and say, hey, you want a piece of pizza? And they'd come down and cuddle on the couch, and they'd jump up immediately, come running downstairs, and we'd watch late night TV and eat frozen pizza. And it was, just incredibly, it was such a wonderful way of finishing a stressful shift. And I needed that. I needed to be around my kids and see them and sort of have them help me decompress from some of the horrible stuff of the day. And it's, I said in the jux of the article, I don't think the words, I wish I'd never woken my kid up for a slice of pizza, have ever been uttered by anybody in their life.
Well, and also what I love so much about it is you stole moments. And so we try to be so prescriptive about parenting and talk about family dinners and all of these other things that kind of protect our kids. And you didn't have that opportunity, so you stole a moment elsewhere. Absolutely. And it created memories.
Well, I used to steal it during the week too. Occasionally on my days off, because I'd be working so many weekends, I'd call my kids in sick, take them fishing, take them to the zoo, go do something, ride bikes, whatever. Keep them home from the, hey, you want to stay home and go do something with Dad? Yeah. I don't care if they got a C in social studies in 4th grade. I'll take the trip to the zoo any day.
Absolutely. Okay, so you are in the ER. And the thing I've spoken with you about in the past, which I love, is you are at the front line of what's going on, and parents want to know what's going on with their teenagers. You get it firsthand. What's going on right now in the ER?
With teenagers?
Yeah.
Overall, it's the same thing that's always going on with teenagers. Most of the health issues we see in regards to teenagers are societal issues. Okay, they're drugs or depression, they're alcohol-related issues, or they're issues involving gang violence or sexually transmitted disease, things like that. Certainly we're seeing the sports injuries and the other other things, but we're not seeing kids sick with COVID. We're not seeing teenagers really sick with COVID. But typical when you talk about the emergency department, it's mostly when you're dealing with teenagers in the ED. I don't know what percent I could say would be sort of societal issues or environmental issues, but probably the majority of the cases we're seeing are related to those kind of problems.
Okay, so the CDC just came out with this, and I know you're promoting this, get flu shots. So,
well, I've always promoted that.
So here we are in a time where I think the idea is that because of COVID, don't give up this notion that you don't need the flu shot. You need it all the more so. Can you explain to us why?
Well, I think you need I think it's even more vital. Now, I will tell you, I am sort of predicting, and I think even the numbers are starting to show in Australia, that I think we may see the mildest flu shot in America, or mildest flu season in America's history coming when the fall comes, when we start to see flu ramped up. And it's all really because of hand hygiene, face masks, social distancing. So all the things we're doing to prevent ourselves and our family and friends from getting COVID-19 are the same things you would do to prevent people from getting influenza. Now, we don't really know what kind of sort of co-infections we're going to see. Realize that when COVID hit back in March, we were right at the tail end of influenza, and influenza was pretty bad this year. And I can't even imagine what it's going to be like for us trying to discern whether we're dealing with a COVID-19 infection or we're dealing with an influenza infection, because you sort of treat these things differently. And it's going to one of my biggest fears is if we're too aggressive in treating, if you're overly aggressive, for example, in fluid resuscitation with COVID-19 patients, a lot of these people go into lung failure, their lungs fill up with fluid. Those same things we may actually be aggressive with influenza. So we can't have people co-infected. We've got to cut down on flu, or else it's going to make it much harder for us to manage these influenza patients. And then we don't even know what kind of illness we're going to see if influenza is a concomitant infection along with COVID-19. I mean, I can't even imagine. The fatality rate is probably going to be sky high when you have both of those infections. So we've got to get people vaccinated for influenza. Influenza vaccines really every year, the earlier the better, I think, September and October especially, so we can cut down and at least mount an immune response for flu.
So our teenagers and our young adults who might otherwise not end up doing that, this year it should be looked at as doing it for the benefit of the whole system, right? The same
also
way.
For themselves. I'll tell you something. Influenza is a heck of a lot more dangerous for kids and teenagers than COVID-19. You have a much better chance for pediatric cases of dying from influenza than you do of COVID-19. And so we've got to get these kids immunized. They also can develop horrible secondary bacterial co-infections, staphylococcal pneumonia, and other really bad illnesses related to influenza. I mean, we have kids that die every year from flu. And in the peak of flu season, I mean, we are drowning in pediatric influenza cases. We're hardly seeing any COVID-19 cases in the pediatric population. So yeah, you got to get the flu shots.
Okay, so you had mentioned that the fallout of the fear of going to the emergency room right now, and even just regular doctor checkups for our teenagers, that there's a fallout right now, and that you really want to encourage people.
I've diagnosed more metastatic cancer in the last month than I have in the last year. Even today, I had another case, somebody that just showed up out of the blue, actually two of them today, with widely metastatic cancer that I know that had we been dealing with these patients in the pre-COVID environment, their cancers would have been picked up a lot earlier. And we're seeing everything from advanced heart attacks, people in congestive heart failure who haven't come in for heart attacks, diabetes out of control, strokes, a whole host of horrible illnesses related to people not going to the doctor out of fear of getting exposed to COVID. And we're seeing that in the pediatric population too. People are letting a lot of illnesses sort of smolder, and because they're afraid to come to the hospital. We just can't have that. We got to have people. We can keep you protected in the emergency department. The way our hygiene, our attention to sort of disease protection is second to none. So you're safe coming in. So we encourage people to come in either the ER, go to their family doctors, and get their routine checkups and the follow up. We got to see you in order to look at some of these preventative care issues.
Okay, this is a controversial one. I know where you stand, so you come out with it strongly. How do you feel about school in the fall?
I think it's fine. I think we need to open schools. It's really easy to say, oh yeah, let's just shut down schools just to be, quote, on the safe side. Well, on the safe side for who? The kids are going to be fine. Okay, they're not going to. As I said before, influenza is more dangerous for the pediatric and the high school population than COVID-19. Now, it doesn't mean that we have to ignore the staff and the faculty within the school. We completely get that. one of the things I've said, that if you're a teacher and you're at risk, I mean, morbid obesity, diabetes, renal failure, things like that, congestive heart failure, COPD, yeah, you probably shouldn't be going to school. And I know that is not optimal. I know that's not what you signed up for, just like it's not what I signed up for. People say, well, you knew what you were doing going into this. Well, yeah, but I didn't think that I was going to risk my life being a doctor. And, it's just the way society has changed. I mean, there's a lot of sort of, vital employees out there that didn't sign up to get exposed to this, but still have to go to do their job. There is an incredible amount of pressure on societal health from kids being home from school. We're seeing an unbelievable amount of trickle-down effects related to violence in the home, depression, suicidality, drug and alcohol abuse, domestic violence, and also parents that can't go to work, that can't support their kids. And a lot of these kids, the only safe environment they have really is in the school environment. And that includes just even having a decent meal once a day. And, it's easy for families of means to sit at home and say, well, I'm going to, homeschool my kid, or I'm going to do it all online, and ignore the fact there's an entire population of people out there that just do not have the environment that's conducive for that. And nothing beats having a kid in the classroom with the ability to learn. And this is going to have long-term detrimental effects on our population. And, we have to think about it from a broader standpoint, what this means from a societal standpoint. And we've got to get these kids back into school. I think it's safe. If my kids were a school age, I would have no problem with them going to school right now. And I even told my school board that I'd show up and teach a class if they want. I'm that comfortable in kids going back to school that I'll be happy to help teach.
Dr. Louis Profeta, thank you so much for taking the time out to talk to us.